Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's a good day. Good morning. My name is Tamika Moss, and I serve as the Secretary of our Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for Governor Newsom, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. It is truly a day of celebration. We are celebrating our collective North Star, which is yes to housing, right? We are saying yes to our unhoused vets today. We are saying yes to our families who are one economic emergency away from a housing crisis. We are saying yes to our neighbors who are experiencing behavioral health challenges. We are saying yes to our young people who are doubled up in housing, needing more housing. We are saying yes to housing. And I'm so excited because this package of bills represents our opportunity to keep working. This administration and legislature has been so committed to addressing our housing crisis and our homelessness crisis. But guess what, y'all? We need to do more, and we need to do it faster, and we need to hold ourselves accountable. And what we are saying no to are delays. We are saying no to communities who are not doing their fair share. We are saying no to communities who resist building shelter in their communities for our unhoused neighbors. And we are also saying no to folks who protest affordable housing projects in our community. We are here now to say yes to housing, and it is my incredible honor to introduce our next speaker, who is one of our incredible housing champions, Assemblymember Grayson. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Moss. And yes to housing. It is such a great honor to be here today with my colleagues as well as the governor, and want to recognize the incredible partnership between Governor Newsom and the legislature when it comes to the pursuit of finding solutions and identifying pathways to address the housing needs that are in California. Housing is connected to health care. Housing is connected to jobs. Housing is connected to education. Housing is connected to transportation. Housing is connected to the well-being of every individual in this state. And I want to thank the advocacy groups. I want to bring recognition to Bridge Housing and to our NorCal carpenters for the incredible work that they do to improve the quality of life for all of Californians. And it is my honor to introduce one of the most tenacious legislators in California with a resolve and a conviction to make sure that everybody has access to housing, my colleague and my dear friend, Assemblymember Buffy Wicks.
Woo! Thank you. I love that when my colleague says tenacious, this whole crew laughs and giggles in the background, but I'll take that as a compliment. I'm so excited to be here. I also want to recognize our Mayor, London Breed, who has been a tremendous leader on housing. Thank you for your leadership. And this wonderful group of people behind us, as well as State Senator Scott Wiener, who I know couldn't be here today. He's in Washington, D.C. at the Center for American Progress Housing event. We've also had great leaders in the Senate, Nancy Skinner, and many, many others who have gotten us here today. And I will say the last, 5 or 6 years have been really transformative in terms of housing policy. We've created structural change on this issue. And now what we need to do is make sure the cities are doing their jobs. And that's what a lot of these bills are today, including some of mine that we went through a very tumultuous process to get them here, and excited to get the signature from the governor. And when I think about housing and why I'm involved, I don't come from a lot. I grew up in a trailer. And, when I was little, I was really embarrassed about that. And what I realized as I got older is that trailer provided for me housing security. That trailer allowed me to go to community college and to access the ladder up, to go from working class to middle class. And that opportunity is not afforded to so many people today, particularly our Black and brown communities. That trailer allowed me to go work for President Obama for 6 years. That trailer allowed me to be an assembly member in California and to do the work that I do. And I am mission focused on ensuring that every young person has that housing security, despite what type of roof is over their head, but that they know it is secure, so our kids can flourish, so they can focus on their school, so our families don't have to make tough choices about can they pay the rent or afford food on their table. And that is what this is about. And that is why every city has to participate in this process. Inertia and status quo are no longer acceptable in California. We are going to build the housing that we need to support our communities. I'm so honored to be here today. I'm so honored to be in this fight, to work alongside the Carpenters Union. And I will tell you, I was in Los Angeles yesterday. We did a groundbreaking for 800 units in South Los Angeles. Carpenters Union, 800 units in South LA with a Costco there. That is just the beginning of what we are going to see in California. Because under the leadership of Attorney General Rob Bonta, of Governor Gavin Newsom, and strong leaders in the legislature and our strong mayors that we have in this city, in this state, we are going to change California, and we're going to realize the true California dream. And when we say tenacious, that is not only the title only for me. That is also the title for one of the best attorney generals the state has ever seen, Attorney General Rob Bonta.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. I want to first invite Assemblymember Wicks to introduce me at every other event that I have for the rest of my life. Thank you for that very kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here with so many pro-housing champions, people who are fighting for a better future, who believe in action and doing instead of just talking and hand-wringing. And I'm just grateful for this collaboration, to have local leaders, including our great mayor of San Francisco, London Breed, and elected state leaders, legislative branch, working with the executive branch, of course, our great governor, who I'll have the opportunity to introduce in a moment. In order to fix a problem, you need to face it, you need to confront it, and you need everyone on board. When you're in a crisis, you got to do what you do in a crisis. It's all hands on deck and every tool in the toolbox. And today is a down payment on more action, more doing, more urgency, being more aggressive when it comes to taking on our housing crisis here in California. And I'm grateful for all the participants in addressing our housing crisis. We are multiple millions of units short of hitting our goals. And no local government, no local jurisdiction, no entity needs to do everything. But every jurisdiction, every local government needs to do something. They need to participate. They need to build housing in their jurisdiction. And so some of the laws that we are passing today, including two that I was honored to sponsor and work with two of the greatest housing champions I think the California legislature has ever seen, Assemblymember Buffy Wicks and Senator Scott Wiener. They provide greater incentives, encouragement, clarity for our local jurisdictions on fulfilling their responsibility. We provide more clarity around what's known as the builder's remedy. When a city does not plan appropriately to build the housing they need to, builders can build housing, and we provide clarity on where, and we make it more financially feasible. We also believe that when a local jurisdiction commits a violation, there needs to be accountability starting and attaching at the point of the violation, not much later down the road where it's vague and ambiguous, but from the point of violation. And so with this clarity, with this structure, we hope, we believe that all of our incredible good faith acting cities following the law will help us get to where we need to go when it comes to creating what we know we all need: an affordable California, a place where every Californian can have access to high quality, dignified housing, whether they rent or own the place they call home. I believe housing is a human right. I believe everyone should have a pathway to great housing, and today the action that we're taking will help us get there. So I'm proud of this group, proud to stand with them and by them. I'm grateful for all the work that they have done, are doing, and will continue to do. And this is what we need: action, collaboration, urgency, and doing what we do in California. We deliver solutions to Californians. We make their fights our fights. One of Californians' fights is struggling to access affordable housing, and we're fighting right alongside them. Thanks for having me, and it's with my great honor that I get to introduce a governor who is great at so many things, including being a great housing champion, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Well, you were going to talk about basketball. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for... They were really impressive. I think they were trying to press all of you guys. There's a little more energy in this press conference than normal, because a lot of these bills they're tough and You got to slog through them. There's 32 bills that we'll be pressing today. 32, 7 that we're highlighting today, 7 that I'll be signing here today in this space. That is not the entire package of housing bills that are on my desk. I started 2 weeks ago, 991 bills. 991 bills on my desk, over 70 in the housing space, and I absolutely concur with what was just stated. This legislature in the last 4, 5, 6 years has done more, arguably, than the last 4 or 5 legislatures have done in the last 30, 40, or 50 years to address this crisis. I mean that. I couldn't be more proud of their work. And you've seen this sort of tectonic mind shift away from NIMBYism to YIMBYism, this shift around accountability, this shift of understanding that the state vision is realized at the local level. Localism is determinative, particularly as it relates to housing. And accountability and transparency are foundational to advance those goals. That said, we continue to struggle with accountability. We continue to struggle with transparency. I give you Exhibit A, Huntington Beach, California. That is a city that's performative in terms of their approach to addressing the crisis of affordability, not just in their city, but in our state. There is no doubt the state of mind for most Californians that I think connects more Californians is a recognition that the original sin in this state is affordability and impacts more people in more ways on more days, and that's the issue of cost of housing. And it's that imbalance of supply and demand. It's the fact that we simply have not gotten out of our way, and that's the challenge we're trying to address here today. And it's a challenge we've been addressing for a number of months, but we're strengthening and we're tightening up our efforts around the accountability frame. We created an accountability unit a number of years ago, and I want to thank the legislature for embracing that and supporting that and funding that effort. 540 actions, 540 actions with that accountability unit, and a champion with the Attorney General that has put the hammer down. And this is not, we're not closed fists, we're open hands. The incentives are next level. But for those that turn their back on this crisis, we're turning up the heat. And Rob Bonta has demonstrably advanced some very aggressive actions that have produced some remarkable results. 7,500 units of housing have been unlocked through the actions the Attorney General has taken and this Housing Accountability Unit has taken. Ask the folks in Elk Grove if this accountability unit hasn't been impactful. And you will soon be able to ask the folks in Huntington Beach if the law I'm about to sign is not impactful. They continue to thumb their nose at the state of California, the people of this great state. They continue to lose decision after decision after decision. They abuse the process. They abuse the law. And now we will enforce aggressive fines with the law that I will be signing today. Enough is enough. This is serious stuff, and it requires serious people, serious purpose, as was said by Buffy, serious mission. And so I want to thank again the legislature for continuing to focus on the issue that defines more issues in the state of California. By the way, that includes component parts, and that's the issue of homelessness. We're now incorporating for the first time, and this is where it gets dull, in the 7th RHNA cycle, look that up later, we will be requiring homelessness as a component part of our legal goal setting. This is the first time the state has done that for people earning below 30% of AMI, 0 to 15%, 15 to 30%, extremely low. We're defining that category of individuals as it relates to the legally required planning process through our RHNA process. We're also improving our efforts around the housing element. We're improving, as it was noted, around clarity, around builder's remedy. And we're addressing the great work, yes, I'm going back to you guys, that our NorCal Carpenters and Danny Curtin representing all of you in the state level. The work you guys did with Assemblywoman Wicks a couple years ago, a year ago, I guess, as it relates to some of these vacant malls that we want to convert. And then we started to see, despite that landmark legislation, AB 2011, getting passed and signed, we started to see some mishigash at the local level, delaying the ability to actually produce the result that is getting cleaned up in the bill that I also will be signing here today. So across the spectrum, we're continuing to iterate, and we're continuing to hold ourselves to a higher level of expectation and ultimately accountability as well. We are all in this together. We are all better off when we are all better off. That's the spirit that defines these bills that will be signed today and pressed. Final thing. The people of the state of California did something extraordinary, and that was they made a commitment, a historic commitment to $6.38 billion to invest in the crisis of behavioral health in this state. We made a commitment that we were going to move a process forward to invest those dollars with the kind of accountability that the people of this state deserve. We moved forward with what we referred to as a notice of funding availability a few months ago for one component part of that bond at an historic pace. Usually it takes 2 years after something is passed before the notice of funding availability comes out. We've just done it in a matter of months, and we're stepping that up again for our vets, $1+ billion that we're putting forward today, and for those that are homeless, that are struggling with mental illness. So that's part of what we call Home Key Plus, $2.25 billion. We're also announcing a framework to make available those dollars in a matter of months, applications available in a matter of months. So moving all of these things forward, trying to move our state forward, trying to address an issue that, again, I think the vast majority of Californians agree is the top issue in this state and increasingly across the nation. With that, we'll take your questions in a moment, but let's sign these bills.
Woo, woo.
The kids' table. Yeah. Talk about my advance here. Let's do it. That's yours.
You guys did the heavy lifting.
That's it. We got it. One final photo. All right. Questions?
I got you.
So we're here to answer any questions. Again, 32 bills will be pressed, all across the spectrum around streamlining, transparency, accountability, renter protection, some tribal work, and as relates to housing are also a component part of those 32. Again, 7 we just signed here today.
Mr. Governor and Assembly Members Wicks, Grayson, and Secretary Moss, and Attorney General Bonta, thanks for taking the time today. It's Eitan Wallace here with Nexstar Media Stations across California. On the housing matter and the bills, looking forward, let's say 5 months, a year, 2 years, what metrics do you believe will define success? Is there a specific number of housing units you want to see built going forward, and what means accountability for you?
Well, we have a specific goal, 2.5 million units of housing by 2030. That's prescribed in the law. That's part of the RENA process. That's part of our framework around accountability. In order to achieve that, we've got to build housing at a much faster clip than we have over the course of the last many decades. In order to do that, we need to advance these streamlining efforts. I have signed now over 34 CEQA reforms since I've been governor, which is just interesting. that's often lost in some of the conversations around this state in terms of some of our permitting reforms and our land use reforms. We've done that, though, not to our friends in labor, but working with our friends in labor. And that's the difference. I say this all the time. You want to go fast, go alone. Want to go far, you go together. And I think that's the spirit of the Carpenters Union be here, who, by the way, I'm saying this with a little bias because it just happens also to be true, but it also may express a bias. The Carpenters Union in particular has been next level in their support of recognizing we need to do things differently and we need to move more efficiently. And do so in a way that doesn't run over the rights, the hard-earned rights that they advocate for. And so I just think we've found this wonderful balance together that really is best in class. I mean it. So, again, but it's just, look, Eitan, the bottom line is we could pass all these laws, and if folks at the local level are blocking all these projects over and over and over, you saw Norwalk this week. You know, we just incorporated homelessness into the accountability unit. That was the housing accountability unit. 540 actions on housing. The first action on homelessness on Monday of this week in Norwalk. They didn't even want to zone or support any supportive housing in their community. And so we're just taking a completely different approach than we ever have in the past. And I think we're lighting a course for the future for other states as well to follow. But again, this is the original sin in this state, decades and decades in the making. Society becomes how we behave. We are by our behavior. And we have failed to produce the results in this space. And that is what we're addressing today. Final point, the Fed impacts are going to be outsized as well. That 50 basis point cut yesterday was a big deal. We look forward to many more cuts over the course of the next few months. And now with all of these reforms, with an interest rate environment where mortgage rates are going down, construction costs begin to soften in terms of cost increases, we, I think, are going to start to see the benefits of all these reforms as well. Forgive me.
Hi, Governor. Deborah Kahn with Politico. The special session on gas prices that you requested began yesterday, and there's a number of additional proposals to stabilize prices besides yours, including one that would pause the upcoming amendments to the low-carbon fuel standard, which were estimated last year to raise prices by 47 cents a gallon. Is that a proposal that you'd be open to?
Well, you got to stress test that estimate. That was in one report. There were subsequent reports that completely didn't get that. So I just want to be careful when that headline gets thrown out there. As it relates to LCFS, I'm deeply involved and engaged in that. I don't think it's appropriate and it's unnecessary to have that mixed up in a special session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Governor. I'm Vanessa with KQED. You have pushed cities to take a more aggressive approach towards clearing homeless encampments. We're now seeing that happen, and we know that many cities don't have enough shelter to put people up even temporarily. We don't have enough interim housing. We don't have enough of this housing. Certainly nowhere near enough of the federal housing vouchers that we need to support getting people into this housing. So there's a lot of stuff in the works. You're talking about that today. Yeah. Where should cities put people
I don't know what they've done with we put $1 billion for these cities for encampment resolution grants. $1 billion. $15.3 billion of new investments. We've unlocked 15,000. This is an exact number. PolitiFact it, if you wish. 15,850 new home key permanent units that this state has funded. We're flooding the zone with the Mental Health Services Act, $6.38 billion, $2.25 NOFA coming up today for Home Key Plus. We're flooding the zone as well as it relates to the reforms in the Mental Health Services Act to provide ongoing funding as we shift those funds to prevention and housing. We did something no other state has done. We've completely reformed our Medicaid system under CalAIM, integrating brain health and physical health, but also incorporating housing as a component part of that whole person care strategy. We've provided more support than ever, more resources and more resourcefulness. Care Court, a new model of engaging folks. Substituted care, yes, as part of our conservatorship reform, but this is supportive care, a new pathway. With respect to the talking points, those are old talking points. We've never provided more support at the local level. But local government needs to do their job. They need to provide that support and that housing, and they need to get people off the streets and sidewalks. People are dying on their watch. There is no compassion in allowing people to suffer the indignity of living in encampment for years and years. I was down in San Diego. I was there with the mayor of San Diego cleaning up encampment. We've removed over 11,000 in this state just through our Caltrans efforts. I walked in, a young kid walked out of the tent. And he said, I'm angry you're here, but I'm also happy. I said, why are you happy? He says, can you come in? And there was his girlfriend with a brand new baby. He was a meth addict, self-described, struggling. Said he got off a bus a year ago and he was trying to clean up, left a different state, came to California just praying that he can get off this drug. He can't. We took care of that kid. There's no compassion in turning our back to what's happening in these encampments. And so I'm, yes, demanding that local government do more to have the decency and the compassion to get people off the streets and to work with us in the spirit of collaboration and do their jobs. I was a former mayor. I never looked at those excuses. You have to have a resourceful mindset. So I just reject, forgive me for being long-winded here, the way you frame the question. It's not the indictment of the question. I've just heard those redundant talking points for 40 years. Yet there's never been more support to address all of those concerns than in the last 4 or 5 years. So what gives? Time to do your job, time to address the crisis of encampments on the streets in this state. And yes, I am not going to back off from that. And you will see that reflected in my January budget. I'm going to fund success, and I'm not going to fund the rhetoric and failure anymore. Forgive the long-windedness. Enough.
Guidance to cities around implementing.
Well, we did. We have a
framework
framework under Caltrans that's very specific as it relates to notification. I don't know what it is about the Encampment Resolution Grant that's confusing to people. The reason we put $1 billion up is there was support. There's a framework. You don't get the money unless you resolve the underlying issue in the first place. You get the money because you actually have to identify the needs of the individuals that are being displaced, which means you actually have to provide support for them. And once you provide that plan, we then provide the money. That, by the way, is just one of many new programs the state has advanced. You have the HAP money, which is discretionary money, $1 billion last year, $1 billion a year before, $1 billion a year prior to that, which provides also discretion. At what point is enough enough? And so I'm at my wit's end a little bit with this. And that's why I did the executive order. They were using grants pass as an excuse. No one's talking about criminal. No one. Come on. That's not who we are. But it is criminal behavior to watch people die on the streets and sidewalks on our watch. That's criminal, to be complicit in that. As I said, society becomes how we behave. And if you call that compassion, I want a redefinition of that because I just do not align with that point of view.
Hey, Governor, Jeremy White with Politico. You signed a bill this week prohibiting the intentional sharing of manipulated deepfakes of candidates in campaign season. Since you signed that bill, Elon Musk has reshared the video that drew your ire in the first place. There are deepfakes out there of you endorsing Donald Trump, saying you are an agent of the Chinese Communist Party. Do you intend to seek legal action, whether it's against Elon Musk or anyone else, as this law now gives you standing to do, to remove these things?
Well, look, I mean, we just signed the law. It's by no means novel. Like Alabama has a similar law. Florida has a similar law. Washington has a similar law. Ours goes a little further because it talks about election workers and what happens after the election. That's why I'm really proud of the work the legislature did in that respect, 60 days post-election, where we anticipate seeing deep fakes and manipulation as it relates to voting integrity. That is a profound distinction in our law. But I think Mr. Musk has missed the punchline. Parity is still alive and well in California. But deep fakes and manipulation of elections, that hurts democracy and the integrity of the system and trust. And we believe in truth and trust. And we think this law is sound and will be upheld in the courts.
So do you intend to seek legal action, whether on Elon Musk or any of the proliferating deepfakes
the
of you?
The law asserts that many can seek injunction relief, and I just signed the law. I just signed 32 other bills on housing, and I haven't had a chance to review the specific lawsuit around a conservative blogger that seems offended by our law, but not the Alabama law or the Florida law.
Thanks, Governor.
Thanks.
Hi, Governor. Suzanne Fawn with ABC7. So San Francisco must build 82,000 units in the next 8 years because of a state housing mandate. How will you, Governor, make sure that the localities have the resources they need to achieve the housing goals that the state is assigning to them?
I'm old-fashioned. I remember when I was mayor, I never once looked to ask Arnold Schwarzenegger, what are you doing for us? I mean, the counties and cities are a resource to the state's not the state's job to figure out how to do that. It is the state's job to force state rules and regulations, state laws, where we're doing that. We provided, though, $40 billion since 2019, $40 billion for housing. But it's not the job of government to subsidize all of that housing. It's to create the conditions where private sector comes in and makes investments, and we provide housing at all income levels because we've created the rules of the road and we've created more certainty. So we're just trying to create more certainty, support those rules of the road, provide more accountability. But this is not, I guess, what I'm saying, writing a big check to San Francisco to address their 80,000 unit gap. In fact, quite the contrary, and I'll close on this. San Francisco was one of the early actions we took under the Housing Accountability. It's one of those 540 actions. And the mayor just left. I would compliment her. If she were here, I'll compliment her now that she's not, because the city, to their credit, worked with us, worked with HCD, worked with Secretary, and created a platform where we engaged and we collaborated, and now they're in compliance with the housing element. And that was technical assistance, to your question, that the state provided the city to help as well.
Okay, one quick question for a colleague. How does San Francisco revitalize the mid-market area after X, Twitter's departure?
Well, I'm not the mayor of San Francisco, as you know, so I don't know the specifics as it relates to one departure of one company. But as it relates to downtown, more specifically, I signed a bill today, Assemblymember Ting, that will allow for increment financing to be captured for the conversion in downtown San Francisco, specifically from commercial to residential. Our mindset is this, not just stacking people downtown, or rather stacking businesses. It is stacking people, forgive me. And this notion that we can revitalize downtowns along the lines of what we've seen in other parts of the world, I think provides promise, and that's why this law was important. I applaud Assemblymember Ting for getting that law to me, and that law was just signed and will have, we think, an impact at least adjacent to mid-market in the downtown core in San Francisco.
Hi, Governor. Good to see you. It's Annabelle Sosa with the LA Times. As you know, this November, voters will be deciding on a ballot measure that is self-described as a homelessness measure, among other things, addressing drug and theft crimes. I wanted to ask, in light of this housing package that you've passed, do you plan to campaign against that ballot measure using your own campaign funds this fall?
I fear I can't do everything because it just I've got trying to get Kamala Harris elected president of the United States, trying to get through these 900 bills. I mean, I just pray, I really do, people take a good look at Proposition 36. There's not $1 attached to it, not $1 attached to it. It's going to set this state back. It's going to cost billions of dollars. That's not my assessment. That's the Legislative Analyst Office assessment. Hundreds of millions a year over the next decade, billions of dollars, an unfunded mandate to guarantee something that doesn't even exist in 22 counties with not $1 attached. And what I mean by that is there's this notion that it's treatment on demand, the initiative, which is a hell of a thing, considering there's not $1 attached to it, not $1.
So just to be clear, do you plan to appear in any campaigns?
Well,
or ads?
I guess I'm campaigning now. I don't know. Look, it's a question of bandwidth. I mean, I've got 5 others on there. There's this MCO tax that's going to cost the taxpayers $11.9 billion. It's going to increase the deficit in this state $11.9 billion. I hope people read what's on the ballot. This MCO, $11.9 billion. So I can come up against that. They've raised like I think they have $80 million in the bank. It's just a question of what you're capable of doing and then trying to address encampments and everything else. We do a lot. But I hope you guys do the job too. I think there needs to be a lot more scrutiny. 22 counties don't have one residential treatment slot, not one. All of a sudden they're going to have treatment on demand after this initiative's done with not one new dollar. It's about mass incarceration. It's about bringing it back to 1980s mindset where it's possession of drugs and you end up in state prison at the cost of $100,000+ per taxpayer. It's funded by big oil and Walmart and conservative right-wing DAs. The impact it's going to have on the black and brown community is next level. And the fact that I saw a poll today and so 70% of people want to support it, I was wondering what state I was living in. And I know people are frustrated. I know people are angry. I am too. But this is not the way of solving it. And I think it's important. I hope you all realize this whole thing was under false pretense. It was around retail theft. Remember that? I hope you guys do the analysis. Please, I can't do this alone. There has to be some scrutiny and accountability. It was all about retail theft. It's interesting. The retailers are not on board. Grocers are not on board. They talked about the retail theft threshold of $950. It's not even included in the initiative. That's not what it's about. It's drug policy reform that sets us back to the 1980s. And we all lived through that, and we've been trying to unwind that. At the same time, I'm for accountability. I signed 11, 12 pieces of legislation on retail theft. Retail theft, the leaders in this space all celebrate it as a national model, and they're right. And I thank the Attorney General and others. He's got a retail theft unit now. We just announced yesterday 171 new arrests, over $500,000. That was just from an operation last month with the CHP. But Prop 36 is a real setback, and it appears clearly that the public has a different point of view.
Thank you. A quick follow-up. I mean, do you think that this messaging isn't translating then with voters if the polls are showing enormous support?
You know, we're the size of 21 state populations combined. I'd like to think everybody picks up the LA Times and absorbs it, all 40 million Californians, and they balance all these facts. I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean it. It's hard, right? I mean, we'd have to raise tens of millions of dollars. And that's the truth. And that's a challenge. So look, I'm not a defeatist on this. Every time you can go back, rewind. I think I've had similar remarks at 25 other locations. That's my point of view. But I'm not naive either. And I made this point. I saw a lot of politicians. They're like this. Which direction's it going? And I saw them move in that direction. And then I realized it was even worse than I thought. I became a little more cynical. They didn't read it. They didn't read it. And that was disappointing to me, but it's not surprising. I've been doing this a long time.
Conversation's been like with Mayor London Breed, who's here
I haven't
today.
had a conversation with her. Everybody has their different points of view. You can ask her. I honestly don't know.
Hey, Governor. Ethan Varian with the Bay Area News Group. Prop 33, rent control on the ballot. Opponents say would hurt housing production. What's your position on that? Would expanding rent
raise
control...
money for that, too?
I just want to hear your point of view on it.
I haven't even had a chance to dive deep on it.
Do you think expanding rent control, allowing cities to do
Well, I
so
know
would
this.
hurt housing?
California, AB 1482, which I signed, is the most significant rent protections in the United States of America. Anti-price gouging, 5% plus CPI, and just cause. We've led the nation in that space, and I was proud to be part of that a number of years ago. $4.78 billion for 371,000 households. You might want to write that down. 371,000 households have gotten the benefit of almost $5 billion of rent subsidies. We've also helped close to $1 billion, $950 million on first-time mortgages. So I'm proud of the work the state has done in that space. I haven't gotten into the weeds on 33.
All right, fair enough.
Thanks so much.
Hey, Governor, this is Tamara Mino with Univision Bay Area. We've seen cities complying, cleaning encampments, but not everyone that lives on the streets are experiencing drug addiction or mental health issues. We've seen people that they just don't have or don't make enough money to pay rent.
That's right.
There are no shelters available. Some people just don't want to go to a shelter, but there's also a wait list to access affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
We know this is probably a long-term solution, building more housing, but what do you think should be done in the meantime? Because what we're seeing is they're just cleaning these encampments, but people are just moving from one place to another.
As I said, billions and billions of dollars we're providing cities and counties to specifically answer that question. We want accountability. Rapid rehousing, prevention dollars, subsidies, supports. housing, all income levels. We want to see that effort take shape. I just signed a bunch of bills to advance that effort. We're providing unprecedented support to do just that. You've got counties that refuse. They have one thing in common. They all identify this issue as a crisis, and they don't do a damn thing about it. That was exactly what the Attorney General just said. They, for years and years and years, sat on their hands, not provided any support for any of the housing that you rightfully address as a concern. And that has led to this crisis. They need to do their job. And that's, I was a former county supervisor and mayor. That's deeply part of the job description. And our job description is to provide support, technical support, incentives, and drive accountability. And you're absolutely right. Some communities have turned their back, and they need to do more, and they need to provide that support.
Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of work to do out here. You guys are still here. Like, what is this over? Forgive me. Sean, sorry.
Hi, Governor. Sean Hubler, New York Times. You've been very busy on the state stage and on the national stage.
Yeah.
And so you got 2 years left in your term.
A little over 2 years.
Right?
Yeah,
A little
I'm
more.
counting the days.
Right. What are your top 2 or 3 goals before you leave office? And what role do you see for yourself longer term, if any, on the national stage?
Well, I haven't thought about the second part of your question. We actually just laid out. I have, you guys, you got to return some emails. You might want to at this stage of the president. I've got a process, Sean, called, we do something with our cabinet secretaries, OKRs, objectives and key results. We lay out numerically in detail what we want to accomplish. We do it on a quarterly basis, and then we've laid out that vision working back over the next, we had a 2.5-year framework that we put together. We just had a retreat on it. So I can give you more detail down across the spectrum of issues, but I think the broader strokes is around accountability, driving results. And I think a big part of what you're hearing today and seeing represented in these bill packages and the good work legislative leaders behind me have done is that we really all are, I think, aligned in that mindset. And so that's fundamental in terms of the approach on healthcare, on housing, on education, on children and youth across the spectrum. But I could provide you more detail because we have it down to the detail on a quarter-by-quarter basis.
Yeah. What about the national stage?
Well, I'm deeply committed to the cause of freedom and democracy. I'm deeply committed to Kamala Harris' success and success of her campaign and candidacy. And I'm expecting she's successful in the next few months, and she's going to have no greater partner in the United States than Governor of California for the next 2 years. And I'm confident well beyond that. This state believes in her. We have her back, and we're looking forward to having her back in the White House for 8 more years.
And after you leave office?
After
what's
I've
your
been
life
2
like then?
years on my obituary. Usually they ask that question when there's 2 months or 12 months. This is distressing. What to do? And you know this. 2 weeks in politics is a lifetime. 2 months is 2 years. I mean, you know. You want to answer the rest of that question?
There you go, Rob. Yeah.
It's on you, Mr. Governor.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Governor.
Thanks. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Look, everybody, I didn't mean to be testy here today on some of this stuff, but it just breaks my heart. I've been doing this a long time, to Sean's point, and I'll very briefly end this. I've been hearing some of the same talking points for decades now. And I guess the longer you do this, the more frustrating it becomes, because I imagine 20, 30 years from now, if we're status quo ante, you'll be hearing the same stuff and people even more angry. And so this is all about a pattern interrupt. It's like an old record player and you scratch it. That's what this bill package represents. We just want to radically change the way we've been doing things. And I think that more than anything else defines the why, the what, and the how of the 7 bills that we just signed here today. Thank you all very much for coming out.